There we go. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Green Party of Canada's Nipissing-Timiskaming EDA's campaign launch. We'll be announcing our candidate tonight. I've got some housekeeping that I want to do. We've got our t-shirts that are for sale, $20, the green, Team Green. We also have our silent auction at the back because we got Elizabeth May to sign some things. So that will be ongoing during the campaign, so it's a bit of a fundraiser. I want to acknowledge that we've got Gordon Miller, candidate from Parry Sound, Muskoka, who's traveled all the way up the highway from Huntsville. So it's great that you're able to join us. And so tonight is about launching our campaign and introducing our candidate. Just for the media, sort of housekeeping, the associations have been defunct for a while, and because of some people in this room got it going in a very short period of time, we turned things around in about, where's Jamie, about 2 months, less than 2 months?
Yes, good work.
2 months we turned it around. We got recertified. We're a real campaign, real party in this area. And as you can see, we've got a great group of volunteers. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Scott Paste, who's going to do our introduction. And also, where's Dr. Daly? There he is. Dr. Daly, thank you very much for offering up the Raven tonight. I know it's closed, but you opened it up to us, so thank you very much. Another former candidate for the Green Party. So without further ado, Scott Paste.
Hello, everyone. We have, yep, okay. You can see why he's the chairman, eh? So, Dave Thompson is our campaign co-chair along with myself, and we have quite a number of former candidates here. I was the GPO candidate in 2011, Scott Daly the GPC candidate in 2011. We have Jamie Board, who was the GPO candidate twice in the early part of the millennium. And we have another candidate we're going to tell you about shortly. We're honored. And Christopher Vard was our GPO candidate just last year. Yeah. So we got lots of candidates, and we have one more to tell you about. When Mike Schreiner became the leader of the GPO about 10 years ago, almost to the month, the GPO had a budget of something like $50,000 a year and one staff. And the leader wasn't paid. Frank de Jong worked for nothing. But they bravely went forward with a fairly goodly number of candidates, election after election. And when Mike took it over, he said, I'm going to run this party like a business. And he has succeeded in building the party up from a $50,000 a year budget to $1 million a year budget, with many staffers and many volunteers and many candidates. So even though this is a federal election, we're really honored to have Mike here for the evening. And he is going to give us a keynote speech, and then he will introduce our 2019 Green Party of Canada candidate, Mike Schreiner.
Thank you all for being here tonight. It really means a lot to me to see some familiar faces and some new faces here tonight. And I just want to take a moment to just say how grateful I am to be meeting on traditional Indigenous territory, the Nipissing First Nation. And just to let you know that when I think about the decisions I make at Queen's Park, I always think about what I can learn from the 7 generations that preceded us and how I can apply my decisions to the 7 generations that will follow us. And I think that is so critically important, especially at this moment in time when we are facing a climate crisis that needs urgent action. So one of the things that Elizabeth May said when she launched this federal campaign, she said that this is arguably the most important election in Canadian history. Because if you think about it, this is our last chance. When the IPCC report came out last fall, a lot of the media said, well, we have 12 years to cut climate pollution in half, or we face a climate catastrophe. But what didn't get reported that much was that the scientists also said that if by 2020 we don't start changing the trajectory of global GHG emissions, there's no way we're going to meet our climate obligations by 2030. So the last time I checked, 2020 is about 3 months away. So this really is the last chance parliament. Think about it, the people we're electing in this election are going to be in Ottawa from 2019 to 2023. And so it's absolutely critical that we elect Greens to change the trajectory that this country is on, to make the transformation we need to ensure that our children, our grandchildren, our nieces and nephews have a livable planet. And it's especially important when you have a provincial premier like we have in Ontario, who's wasting your tax dollars, sabotaging climate solutions, instead of actually offering climate solutions. And so instead of wasting your money on gas pump stickers that actually don't even stick to things, it'd be so much better off if we were spending our money actually on solutions. And we know that the costs are escalating. And right here in North Bay, you experienced it. Last summer, as the smoke from the forest fires in Parry Sound blew over North Bay, you felt it. This spring, as you look to the neighbors just south of you and the flooding in Muskoka, you experienced it. The shoreline erosion that we're seeing on the lake right now is an indication of it. Last year alone in Ontario, the climate crisis cost this province $1.3 billion in insurable losses. That doesn't even count the uninsurable losses. For example, in Toronto, on a single day in August, they experienced $80 million of infrastructure damage. And so I don't see how any government can consider itself fiscally responsible if it doesn't address the crisis, whose costs are escalating. And I would argue it's an economic imperative that we do it as well. We know that the fastest growing sector of the global economy is the clean and caring economy. It's a $26 trillion economic opportunity. And the question is Ontario going to lead it, or are we going to lose jobs to it? You know, right after the GM plant closed in Oshawa, and they said it was partly because of their transition to electric vehicles, I actually approached the Premier and I said, we should develop an electric vehicle strategy for Ontario, because we know that global automakers are going to invest $255 billion in EV and low-emission vehicles over the next 5 years. And as, you know, an automotive jurisdiction, we should be leading the EV revolution, not losing jobs to it. But when the Premier released his auto strategy for Ontario, did anybody see the word electric vehicle in there? Wasn't even there. Like, it's just unbelievable. It's almost like we have a Premier doubling down on building horse carriages and buggy whips 120 years ago instead of actually embracing automobiles. Imagine what kind of province we would be if we hadn't moved into the future instead of going backwards. We know that there will be $322 billion a year globally invested in clean energy solutions over the next 5 years. Are we going to lead it? Or are we going to lose jobs to it? And so one of the reasons I believe this federal election is so essential is that our provinces are letting us down right now. You know, more people work in clean energy than work in the oil sands. Every dollar invested in a clean economy creates 7 times more jobs than the same dollar invested in the oil and gas economy. So we have to make the transition. And as we generate those jobs and create that prosperity, we absolutely have to invest in the caring professions, in healthcare, in education, in childcare, in mental health and addictions, the types of jobs that are low carbon jobs, and also the kinds of jobs that care for our people. But instead, and no offense to your provincial member here who was the previous finance minister, but instead of making those kinds of investments, the Ford government has cut healthcare, cut education, cut affordable housing, cut care for long-term care for seniors, and you're experiencing it every day in this community. And so we need a government that's going to invest in people, going to invest in education, both post-secondary and secondary to elementary, is going to invest in housing affordability solutions, is going to invest in long-term care facilities, going to invest in healthcare and education, so we can have and build livable, connected communities that care for each other. And I want to close with 2 final points. The first is we absolutely have to take care of the places we love in this province. You know, this premier has been all about paving over green space and farmland. And I don't see how anybody can consider themselves fiscally responsible in any way if we continue to pave over the Earth's ability to prevent flooding in particular, to absorb excess water, to protect our communities. I don't see how any government can consider itself fiscally responsible when it cuts flood prevention programs in half, cuts tree planting programs, and puts forward legislation that's opening up green space and farmland for development. And so when I'm at the plowing match tomorrow with the premier, I'm going to challenge him to make a commitment to protect our prime farmland and to support local farmers who are delivering local sustainable food solutions, which are going to become more and more important as our food security is threatened due to a changing climate. And the final point I want to make, and this is why I think the green wave is spreading across Canada, is that people in this country want a completely new way of doing politics. They're sick of the partisanship. They're sick of parties hurling insults at each other. They're sick of parties that support one thing one day and then are opposed to the same thing the next day because another party proposed it. And I think one of the reasons you're seeing so many Greens elected on the West Coast, and you know, Scott said it's not quite my 10th-year anniversary yet, but it's getting close. I'm a couple months away. But 10 years ago, when I became leader of this party, people said there was no way a Green could get elected. And Elizabeth May proved them wrong. And then people said, oh, well, you got one seat, but you're never going to get another seat. And then we elected a leader in British Columbia, Prince Edward Island, and New Brunswick. And then people said, oh, you can elect leaders on the coast, but you're never going to form caucuses. And now we have 3 Greens holding the balance of power in a minority government in British Columbia. We have 8 Greens and PEI forming official opposition. And we have 3 Greens in New Brunswick in a minority government. And then people said, oh, you can elect Greens on the left coast and the right coast, but you'll never elect Greens in Upper Canada. And then last year we proved them wrong here in Ontario. Way to go, Mike! But I think a big part of what is driving that is a deep desire by Canadians to change the way we do politics, to support a party that's going to put people before our own partisan self-interest. A party that's going to say we're not going to hurl insults at other parties. A party that says we're going to put principle before power. A party that's about honesty and ethical government. A party that's willing to work with anyone to address the big crises we face. And I want to close by just saying one of my proudest nights, or proudest days at Queen's Park, I should say, last year. Well, there was a day where we had 3 votes. Something put forward by the Conservatives, something put forward by the Liberals, and something put forward by the NDP. And I have to check this. Can we check this sometime, Candace? I have to check this. It may be the first time in Ontario history that a member voted for all 3 pieces of legislation put forward by another party. And I remember the House erupted. The place went crazy. People were screaming at me, Schreiner, you got to control the Green Caucus. You guys are all out of control over there. You're voting for everything. What's wrong with you people? And I try to be really polite when I'm on the floor, but I actually got up and I said, you know what? This is what doing politics differently is all about. You know what? The Conservatives, NDP, and Liberals all put forward ideas that I campaigned on. Ideas that made sense. Ideas that I'd promised my constituents I would support. So I wasn't going to vote against it just because another party put it forward. You know, I can be critical of the government. I can be critical of the other opposition parties. But if they do the right thing, I'm going to stand there side by side with them. I'm going to vote with them because we were elected to do a job. And that's to put the people of this province first. And that's what Greens going to Ottawa are going to continue to do. I have the honor and the privilege tonight of introducing and welcoming the candidate for Nipissing-Timiskaming. And it's somebody who I had the honor of meeting today and having just a wonderful day. And so Alex Gomm is an incredible person, born here, grew up here. As somebody who's struggling to learn French, I was amazed that you can speak how many? 5 languages, I think it is?
4.5.
4.5 languages. Somebody who, is approaching this job with a deep commitment to honesty, to integrity, to putting people first, to ethical government, to making a difference for the people of this riding. And so, Alex, I just want to say thank you for stepping up and being the candidate, and thank you for putting your name on the ballot so we can send, this riding can send you to Ottawa to be the next member of Parliament.
Hi, good evening. It is a very, very deep honor to be nominated for the Green Party for Nipissing-Timiskaming, and I was also thrilled to meet Mike Schreiner today. I've been very, very impressed with his performance at Queen's Park, and it is so wonderful to see someone doing politics differently, to see somebody who's doing politics with respect and dignity, and bringing some dignity back to Canadian politics, which is one of the other things that this campaign is about.
Hear, hear.
For too many years, we've let ourselves slide into muckraking and politics that do not focus on the issue. And we are public servants. Our job is to serve the public and not to squabble amongst ourselves about how to get things done. And certainly that's one of the things that Mike alluded to, was that it doesn't matter who comes up with the idea as long as it gets done. And so these years of constant fighting between parties, and each party undoing the work of the previous government, have to end. And the only way we can do that is through proportional representation. Our governments should reflect our people, and they don't at the moment. Our governments increasingly reflect the interests of large corporations, many of whom have no ties to Canada and no interest in leaving the land better than when they arrived. One of the important Native traditions, as Mike spoke about, was thinking 7 generations in the future. How are you going to leave the land for your children and for their grandchildren and their grandchildren? I personally would like to see the human race survive for more than 20 years. If we don't change every aspect of our society, we face extinction, and that's what this is about. We can't wait any longer. We have to act now, and it's possible. I lived in China for the past 6.5 years. When I first arrived, I could not breathe. I could not see Mike, who is 2 meters away from me, because the air was that bad. The president promised that he would clean up the air. And within 2 years, we had half of the year clear skies. If there is political will and support from the people, it happens. And very clearly across this country, people are waking up and realizing that we can't just have the same old garbage. We need to change. And we need to be accountable for our actions. And we're not right now. We're deluding ourselves into a false sense of security. And we're not paying the true costs of our convenience. These are not factored into an economic system which was somehow forged in vacuum. It does not consider the land that we need to live. We need to change that. And I am thrilled to have members of the community, very, very strong, passionate people working with me and and working on behalf of the people of Nipissing-Timiskaming. People who believe that this area has a lot of potential, who know that the people here are very intelligent, hardworking, and creative. And we can find creative solutions for the North, a North which has been left out of federal and provincial governments for way too long. We are always an afterthought, but we're sitting at the gateway to the other lungs of the planet. We have a responsibility to be stewards of the land and to work together with First Nations communities all across Northern Ontario to ensure that it stays there. And so I'd like to thank everyone that's committed to running for this campaign. I'm green, I'm new at this. I'm used to addressing Chinese teenagers when I speak publicly, so this is a little new.
Doing well.
Oh, thanks. But I'm really thrilled to be given the opportunity to serve the people of this community, and together we can make a really big difference. All right? Everyone together.
So I think we can see why Alex is our candidate for 2019. This has been a two-party event, Green Party of Ontario and Green Party of Canada. So this is our new T-shirt with both parties represented, and on the other side it says the Green Team. So Alex, I'm presenting you with this shirt, and wear it with pride as you go about the hustings.
I will. Thank you very much. Thank you again very much, Mr. Schreiner, for coming this evening.
My pleasure.
All right.
Okay, so Dave is going to hold forth here at the T-shirt table for anyone else who would like a T-shirt. We have at the back our silent auction for a few of the Elizabeth May autographed items, and people who would like to make a donation to the campaign can see me. Okay, so thanks everyone for coming out. Thanks to our friends at the media for coming out and giving us an opportunity to share our news with the community. And I hope everyone has a great night and a great campaign. And dessert. Yeah, we'll have dessert.
Okay. I gotta get Alex out there though. You can sing. Alex, gonna.
Okay, yeah.
Here's what my way of leading us on. To dream the possible dream, to fight the noble fight, not left, not right, but forward, go green!
All right, Elizabeth! Okay, the final piece of housekeeping. I think everyone here knows, but on Wednesday we're back here at 7 o'clock over in that dining room again for a campaign organizing meeting for volunteers. So I hope to see you then. Great.
Yes. Okay, before everyone leaves, also, if you have a chance to go to the International Plowing Match tomorrow,